tell you, it's kind of hard to start out when your friends get you in tears right out of the box. Look at the crowd, look at these amazing women. I have to tell you, authentically and sincerely, I have believed for 30 plus years in the business community that the Treasure Valley has some of, if not the best, giving, authentic, resilient, pick themselves up from the bootstraps women in the whole country. And here's a great cross-section of you right now. Thank you. I love that. You can do anything. I am a product of a Kobe, Japan, samurai blood Japanese mother and a Boston, Massachusetts, blonde, blue-eyed Catholic dad. Neither one of them knew what they were getting into when my dad was stationed in Tokyo, Japan in the 1950s in the Air Force. He was a journalist and a cartoonist. I think that that's the very beginning of where I had a passion for veterans. And to this day, and the multiple thousands of mortgage loans that I've closed, I'm most singularly proud of the over 1,200 veteran loans that I've been able to accomplish and hopefully change some lives. And they're the most gratifying of all the loans that I close. And we close a lot of gratifying loans, don't get me wrong. Every loan feels like an accomplishment, but the veteran loans have a really special place in my heart. And I'm sure that somehow that is from my DNA of starting out on Johnson Air Force Base in Tokyo, Japan in 1960. So today, how you react in the first 48 hours of life's inevitable curveballs, little ones, medium ones, big ones, personal ones, professional ones, is everything that dictates your outcome from that point on. I would like to share a couple, 3 to be specific, of the major curveballs that I've endured, struggled, fought, overcome, and triumphed over in my life. The first one, when I was 25, I had had a miscarriage, and several weeks later, I knew I was pregnant again. And I went to the OBGYN, and remember in Boise, Idaho in the 1980s, we didn't have nearly the medical services or the medical science that we do today. And my male OBGYN said that's physically impossible. You can't already be pregnant again. You must be carrying placenta from the first miscarriage. And we need to go in and do a D&C, which is basically an abortion. And fought me on that and said, you are going to do this because it's dangerous to your health as a woman. And I fought it, and I said, I've got nothing to lose to wait. How long will it be before you have the technology to where you can actually verify that I'm pregnant again? And finally, at 2.5 months pregnant, they had to concede I was indeed pregnant with another baby. And that baby boy is now my 34-year-old son, Jonathan, who is now a father of his own. So I went through a picture-perfect pregnancy, had a great pregnancy, but then had a very, very difficult labor. We almost lost both of us in labor. Fortunately, due to an emergency C-section, we were delivered a healthy 8-pound baby boy. So you wonder to this day why every medical diagnosis in my life or in my family's life, I triple check with the doctors. It makes sense, right? Because I had to fight for that. So that was a major, major overcoming. In choosing then to react and trust my own spirit, my own emotions, and knowing as a woman what was going on with my own body, I'm sure all of you can relate to that. Fast forward till I was 30. I had just spent a decade helping build a very successful real estate development company in the Valley, back when Meridian had 2,000 people. And we were part of that initial wave of growth that Tammy DeVeard's now taken to, we eventually be 200,000 people. And in that very successful career business-wise, we had major marriage problems. And I went through a very, very difficult period in time, ultimately in a divorce at 30. And the reasons behind it that matter the most were, and what I had to overcome, were the betrayals, not just emotionally, not just with financial issues, not just with trust, but also probably most significantly, I went through a real crisis in my spiritual life then, because the marriage counselor that we had at that time from our church basically said to me, it doesn't matter how many dozens of infidelities that your spouse has had, it doesn't matter how many layers of trust he's broken financially, emotionally, personally, he is the head of your household, and you will submit. So I have to believe 30 years later that Christianity has come a lot further than that, but that was my reality at 29 years old. And after I overcame that crisis and the light bulb went on and said, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You've been brainwashed. You need to get out of this. So my parents helped me get out of that marriage. But in overcoming that and how I reacted to that, in those first few days, I knew in my gut, I knew in my spirit, I had my dignity, I had my character, I had my intestinal fortitude. I knew I was going to make it through that. But most important, I not only needed to maintain those qualities and those characteristics that had gotten me to the grand old age of 30, but that was the way I was raised, and that's the way I wanted to live the rest of my life. But mostly because I knew that, and I had hopes, that I could raise Jonathan in a much healthier and much better environment. So I chose to fight that, and I fought through that. I like to think I fought with dignity, and I didn't fight dirty. And I knew what I had to do pragmatically. But that particular experience not only tested every bit of resilience that I had built at that point in my life, but also set the foundation for the rest of my life. I thought I could never overcome anything harder than that. So the next decade of life went really well, had lots of highs, lots of achievements, lots of accolades, lots of memories, lots of thousands of beautiful people in my life, and wonderful long-term friends like you just met, Meg, earlier. And life just seemed to be wonderful, and I was bulletproof now, and I was Teflon-proof, and I had already gone through the toughest experience I'm ever going to go through in life. So I knew I had it made at 40. Until August 16th, 1998. And my son, I forgot to say, and I met and married the soulmate and love of my life, Michael Hummel, and we raised Jonathan really well. I don't want to forget that. Fortunately, he's not here today, so hear that. And we'll be celebrating 30 years real soon. So, August 16th, 1998, we were leaving my in-laws' lake cabin at McCall Lake. Y'all love McCall, I'm sure. And especially McCall Table. And that was our typical summer getaway, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come home Monday kind of weekend. I reside in a very high-stress occupation and business, and at the time I was working 80, 90 hours a week, building a business that at the time I had 3 male partners, and we started Young Mortgage in 1994. And by the time of 1998, it was already becoming very successful as we rode the wave of Treasure Valley's first major growth span. And I eventually bought out 2 of those male partners. And we were coming back from McCall, and typically in the summertime, instead of coming home the normal way from McCall to Ada County, we would go the long way through New Meadows and Council and Weiser and Payette, where I grew up. And I probably forgot to say earlier, how in the world did I end up in Payette, Idaho? With a Boston dad and a Kobe, Japan mother. I just want to insert that they were both disowned when they married. My mother was disowned for having an out-of-wedlock child, me. I'm the love child. She sacrificed and gave up a lot to have me. She walked away from 2,500 years of samurai ancestry, material wealth, social status. Japan at that time was a very racist country, and the fact that she married my lowly American GI made me a half-breed mongrel in the Japanese culture's eyes, so she knew she couldn't raise me there. So both my parents were disowned, and the Air Force dropped them off with the $50 and a duffel bag on the tarmac in Seattle, Washington. And they had no family, they had no support system. They had me in a Dole banana box for my first bed. And my dad interviewed for a newspaper job in Payette, Idaho. He'd already been an accomplished journalist by the time he was 30. And that's how we got to Payette, Idaho. So, back to August 16th. We're coming home. We always stop at my mom and dad's in Payette. On the way home, I called my parents to let them know we were on the way. And for the first time in years, they didn't answer the telephone. And I thought, that's really strange. Granted, we didn't have cell phones and smartphones and texting and all those things in those days, but they always answered the phone. And that was early 9-ish in the morning on a Monday morning. And so we continued on, continued driving. And somewhere around Council or so, about 10:15 that morning, I had this really strange, dark foreboding over my psyche and my spirit, and I had no idea why, and I had no idea where it was coming from, so we continued on to Payette, and when we arrived in Payette, about 11:30, we were greeted with yellow and black crime scene tape all around my parents' half a block property. My mom was running a fruit stand at the time, which was her dream and passion, and I tried to break through, and fortunately, a policeman stopped me and said, "I can't let you go through. You're Suzanne, aren't you? I recognize you from your high school track days." I said, "Yes." He said, "I cannot let you go through those lines because it will screw up your psyche for the rest of your life." And thank heaven for that policeman, because that policeman blessed me and probably saved me from I don't know what, but he definitely saved me from having a screwed up psyche, because as he continued to proceed, he said, "Your parents have been murdered." And they were murdered within the minute of when I had that foreboding at 10:15 a.m. So take what you may from the spiritual implication of people you're close to, but it's really real, it's there. So we proceeded. Within that next few minutes, I honestly can't remember. The only thing I remember was that I went into shock and kept saying, "I need to get in there, I need to help them, I need to help them," because obviously my conscience had not really grasped or processed that they were already gone. There's no way I'm going to go into what the next 2 years were like. Excuse me. So I brought, we endured a criminal trial. We endured all the things that come with a double homicide. Went national. So out on my Castle and Cook mortgage table, if you're so inclined and you feel like you know more about that gruesome murder, double murder, and the details, you can read that in that story. Okay? So it's there for you. So the next couple years, I will say, trying to keep life as normal as possible, continuing to move on, having only an infancy of a business to run, a 12-year-old to make sure he turned out okay. I mean, I'd be lying to say it wasn't the toughest thing I've ever gone through to date in my life. Hopefully, never go through anything tougher than that again. I hope no one in this room ever goes through anything like that again. But I would be lying if I didn't say that it tested every bit of resilience, compassion, hope, and anything that I could possibly muster up to get through, to look forward to the rest of my life. But going back to the first two major overcomings in my life, one thing I had learned, how I react in that first 48 hours is everything. And the tools that I'll talk about in a second, and what I learned to put in place at a relatively young age in life, in my adulthood, is what's carried me through to today, makes all the other smaller adversities seem like little curveballs for the first weekend. I have to believe that in our DNA, not only the way we're raised, but also what's in our parents' DNA, the environmental influences, the Bloodline influences absolutely has an impact too on how you react to stress and how you react to situations in life. And I know that I was blessed with that ability to have that resilience and the ability to have a good self-esteem and high confidence, and knowing that no matter what, if I could look on the other side of that rainbow, I'll make it. Excuse me, I think I'm drinking a lot of water because it's kind of an emotional, painful place for me to go. So, my reaction in that first 48 hours after I lost John and Cosco Boyle was this was my change one thing that has guided me through life since then, the last 30 years, or 25 years, and that is I refused to remember my parents by what happened on that last day on earth. And instead, I chose to revere them for all their sacrifices, especially bringing me into the world, and all of the charitable acts and donations and acts of kindness that they gave back to humankind for 68 years on earth. So that today is my one change. Change one thing, change how you react. Now, some tools to help implement that. What I do typically then, through those major experiences, and I think I've learned to really come and trust and love the ability to take that choice on how I react, and will continue to do so the rest of my life, and I hope it helps each and every one of you here today. And that is to give yourself the patience and the permission to take your time to grieve what's been lost, grieve what's changing, grieve what's going to change, whether it's personal, professional, emotional, spiritual, physical, life-changing, whatever it is, give yourself permission to be human and take that time. I know every woman in this room at times has been called superwoman, and as women, we come through amazing things in life, and we think we can do it all, and sometimes we really can do it all. But in that situation with a life's curveball, no matter how small or big, give yourself permission, please, to be easy on yourself, to know that it's going to take time. Small curveball, maybe you allow yourself 12 hours to figure out a game plan. A major curveball, maybe it's 2 years. You know, a life situation or an income situation or a divorce or a financial, maybe it takes more time. And you know, when you're going through a divorce, one thing that really helped me was my dad saying, you know, the first thing you have to reconcile is the marriage is dead, but the parenting goes on for the rest of your life. So put your children first, no matter what the consequences are, no matter what you walk away, even if you walk away from millions of dollars you created, put the child first, because that's your legacy. Big, big, big help for me. So when I look on the other side of the rainbow, I imagine what is my desired outcome for that economic loss, for that family loss, for that major change in life, for that divorce, for that health problem, for enduring and battling cancer, whatever it is, a shocking death that you weren't expecting of a close friend or family member. Look on the other side of that rainbow and start to map out. I do it in writing, and by the way, I have the world's worst illegible writing, as my assistant Becky Reeder can attest. Illegible, but write down pages and pages and pages, whatever it takes, kind of a primitive form of journaling, if you will, what that outcome on the other side of that rainbow is going to be and what you want it to look like. And then start to put into place, I do it on paper, what are the pragmatic steps that need to be implemented? What's it going to take with time, investment, commitment, financial resources, emotional help? And by the way, we never do it alone, do we? We're humans, we're not computers. I rely on the people that I trust. We should all rely on the important people in our lives, because those are our people, or I guess the new word today is our tribe. But those are the people that will help us get to the other side of the rainbow. And it takes a village. It really takes a village. But if you can visualize that, map out, and then slowly begin to implement those pieces, you will arrive on the other side of that rainbow successfully. You can move on in time Not taking away that the emotional grief might always be there, but you will at least be able to be a productive person, go on with your life, have a hopefully great life, achieve most of all you ever dreamed or desired, and put prayers on those dreams and feet on those prayers and dreams and desires. Put colorful boxes by the steps of implementation that need to be taken to get there. And I really believe you will arrive there on the other side of that rainbow successfully. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you.